Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss tetracyclines, one of the most important groups of antibiotics in clinical practice. So in this session we will systematically go through the classification, mechanism of action, resistant patterns, clinical uses, pharmacokinetics, adverse effects and contraindications of tetracycline. There is a large group of antibiotics that act by inhibiting protein synthesis in bacteria, and this group includes tetracyclines, macrolides, clindamycin, chloramphenicol, aminoglycosides. Among these, some drug groups are extremely important both for the exam perspective and in clinical practice. Within this category, tetracyclines stand out because they are frequently asked in exams and widely used in day to day clinical practice. So, now that we know where tetracycline fit, let's move on to their classification. Tetracyclines are classified based on the duration of action into three groups. First, we have the short acting tetracyclines. These includes chlorotetracycline and tetracycline. Second, we have the intermediate acting tetracyclines, which include dermicocycline. And third, we have long acting tetracyclines, and these are the most commonly used in practice. They include doxycycline and minocycline. Now, apart from these, there is one important newer drug called Tigecycline. Tigecycline is a semi-synthetic derivative of minocycline, and this drug is highly active against many bacteria that are resistant to older tetracyclines. And because of this, Tigecycline is reserved for severe and resistant infections. Another important point to remember is that tigecycline is given intravenously, not orally. This is because it is not effective orally and it is mainly used in hospital settings. Now, let's discuss the mechanism of action, which is the most important part of any antibiotic group. So, first, tetracyclines are broad spectrum antibiotics. This means they are active against a wide range of organisms, including gram positive bacteria, gram negative bacteria, some anaerobics, atypical organisms, even parasites such as Plasmodium falciparum. So, tetracyclines cover a very broad spectrum of pathogens. Next, in terms of their effect on bacteria, tetracyclines are bacteriostatic. This means they inhibit bacteria growth and multiplication, but they do not directly kill the bacteria. Now, coming to the actual mechanism, tetracycline act by inhibiting protein synthesis in bacteria. So, to understand this, remember that bacterial ribosome has two subunits, 50S subunit and 30S subunit. Tetracycline specifically bind to the 30S subunit of the bacterial ribosome. And by binding to the 30S subunit, they prevent the attachment of tRNA carrying amino acid to the A site of the ribosome. If tRNA cannot bind, new amino acid cannot be added to the growing polypeptide chain. As a result, protein synthesis is blocked and bacterial growth stops. So, the key point to remember is tetracyclines inhibit protein synthesis by binding to the 30S subunit of bacterial ribosome, and this is the most important exam oriented takeaway. Now, let us discuss the pharmacokinetics of tetracyclines, starting with absorption. So, drugs like doxycycline and minocycline are well absorbed orally, which is why they are commonly used in clinical practice. These drugs are usually given once or twice daily. Now, an important drug to remember here is tigecycline. Unlike other tigecycline is given intravenously, not orally. This is because it is not effective by the oral route and it is reserved for serious infection in hospital settings. Now comes a very important point. The absorption of most tetracycline is impaired by food, milk, and antacid. Why does this happen? Milk and antacids contain divalent and polyvalent cations such as calcium, magnesium, aluminium, iron, and these cations form chelation complexes with tetracyclines, making the drug insoluble. As a result, the drug cannot be absorbed properly and its action is reduced. Therefore, patients taking tetracyclines should be advised not to take milk or antacid before or after the drug. Now, let's talk about distribution. Tetracycline cross the placenta very easily and are secreted in breast milk, and they are also enter the cerebrospinal fluid, but the concentration in CSF is relatively low, about 25% of the serum concentration. The ability to cross the placenta and enter breast milk is clinically very important because these drugs can reach the fetus, enter the infant during breastfeeding, and may cause toxic effects. Excretion. Most tetracycline are excreted by the kidneys through glomerulofiltration. Some amount is also excreted through biles and feces. Because of enterohepatic circulation, the drug level in the body are maintained for a longer duration, which contributes to their sustained action. Now, an important exception you must remember: doxycycline and minocycline are excreted mainly by non renal mechanism. Because of this, they can be safely used in patients with renal insufficiency without significant dose adjustment. So, even in patients with mild renal impairment, doxycycline and minocycline are considered safe compared to other tetracycline. Now, let us discuss resistance, which means the ability of bacteria to protect themselves against the action of tetracyclines. Bacteria develop resistance to tetracyclines mainly through three mechanisms. First mechanism, decrease drug entry or increase efflux. This is the most common and most important mechanism. Here, bacteria either reduce the entry of tetracyclines into the cell or actively pump the drug out using efflux pumps. And because of this, this antibiotic cannot reach adequate intracellular concentration and hence becomes ineffective. Second mechanism, ribosomal protection. In this mechanism, bacteria produce ribosomal protection proteins. These proteins protect the 30S ribosomal subunit, which is the binding site for tetracyclines. As a result, tetracyclines are unable to bind to the ribosome and protein synthesis continues normally. And this is also a clinically important mechanism of resistance. Third mechanism, enzymatic inactivation. In this mechanism, bacterial enzyme inactivate the drug. However, this mechanism is less significant compared to the first two. So among these three mechanisms, the most important one are decreased drug influx, increased efflux, and ribosomal protection. Now remember tigecycline, which we discussed earlier. Tigecycline can overcome many of these resistant mechanisms and is effective against several resistant organisms, including Staphylococcus aureus. However, tigecycline is not effective against Proteus species and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Why? Because these organisms have powerful multi-drug efflux pumps, which can pump out not only tetracyclines but many other antibiotics as well. Now, let us discuss the uses of tetracyclines, which is a very important section both for exams and clinical practice. First and most importantly, tetracyclines are the drug of choice for rickettsial infections. Whenever you see rickettsial disease in exam, the first drug that should come to your mind is doxycycline. There are also used in mycoplasma infections and chlamydial infections, which are common cause of atypical pneumonia and sexually transmitted infections. Tetracyclines are effective against certain spirochetes such as Lyme disease, leptospirosis. Now coming to Helicobacter pylori infection. Tetracycline are used as a part of Helicobacter pylori eradication regimen, usually in combination with other drugs. In cholera, tetracycline do not significantly shorten the duration of diarrhea. However, they play an important role in reducing bacterial shedding. By decreasing the shedding of Vibrio cholerae, tetracycline help prevent the spread of infection to other. They are also used in certain sexually transmitted diseases, especially those caused by chlamydia. Now, a very important use of tetracyclines, especially doxycycline, is in the prophylaxis of Plasmodium falciparum malaria. Doxycycline is given before traveling to a malaria endemic area, during the stay, and for a few weeks after returning. So this help prevent malaria effectively, especially in travelers. Other uses: tetracyclines are also commonly used in acne and other skin infections, acute chronic bronchitis, community acquired pneumonia. So overall, tetracycline have wide clinical applications. Now, let us discuss the adverse drug reactions, which are very important to remember. First, hypersensitivity reactions can occur, but they are relatively rare with tetracyclines. The most common adverse effects are gastrointestinal. Among these, nausea is very common, occurs in about one third of patients. Vomiting and diarrhea are comparatively less common. Tetracycline can disturb the normal intestinal microflora, and this suppression of normal flora allows overgrowth of other organisms, such as candida, leading to oral or vaginal candidiasis. Patients may complain of itching, oral thrush, or diarrhea due to this imbalance. Now, the most important adverse effect to remember: tetracycline bind to calcium ions. Because calcium is present in large amount in bones and teeth, tetracyclines get deposited there, and this leads to discoloration of teeth, enamel hypoplasia, inhibition of bone growth. And that is why tetracyclines are contraindicated in pregnant women, breastfeeding mothers, children below 8 years of age, and this is a very high yield exam point. Tetracyclines can also cause liver and kidney toxicity, especially when used improperly. A rare but important condition called Fanconi syndrome can occur due to the use of outdated tetracyclines. Although this is uncommon, but it is important to remember that expired tetracyclines should never be used.